Hey, this is Karen with Coaches Corner Chats, and on the podcast, I have Justin Furtado. Justin, where are you at, and what are you up to?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on. My name is Justin Furtado. Like you said, I am a basketball coach here in Los Angeles, California. Currently, I am coaching Venice High School Frosh Soft basketball team, and I'm also the founder of Bridging Impact. I'm training, youth athletes and with basketball and leadership. So that's what I'm up to.
How did you come about making the connection between basketball and leadership and using those two to help one another?
Yeah, 1,000%. I started with attending actually a campus called PGC basketball. And for those that are listening, whether they're coaches or, maybe they're parents of kids and they are playing basketball, like it is by far the best like basketball experience I've ever been a part of. It's really what taught me a lot about basketball and leadership and a lot of bridging impact for me is bridging impact. How can I bridge that impact that was made on me to the next generation of youth? And I will share, just a quick little story from in between my junior and senior year. I attended PGC basketball, but rewind a little bit. I was cut from the varsity team my junior year from basketball. And, I was frustrated, but I got an opportunity to play JV. And so I got to stay around the game and I really wanted to make the varsity team. Like that was my goal. And so I was in a fortunate position where, my dad drove me down from Santa Barbara and I was way up in, it's called Humboldt County in California. So it's about an 8-hour drive. I went to this camp and it's like kind of a sleepaway camp. And it was, I could describe it as intense, but there was just so much passion and energy and talking about, the little intangible aspects of sports. I know you are in the soccer world and I'm not quite as tapped in, on that side, but I'm sure there's a lot of nuances and ways to impact a game that are not scoring, right? I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people think in basketball, like the only way you can contribute to a team and win is if you're, the scorer, and that's not true. You can play great defense, you can be an unselfish player, you can bring energy, like have good body language. And that's where I really learned from that camp. Okay, I want to make sure that, I'm going to bring this good energy and always be striving to give my best. I came into tryouts just in the best shape out of anyone, because I just learned that if I want to make the team, I have to outwork that. And that's a semblance of leadership because, as I've learned and kind of transition into the coaching world, right? If I'm going to ask a player to do something, I have to model the way first. So that was my first real experience of combining basketball and leadership. And I actually took a break kind of from coaching in sports for my first few years in college, to figure out who I am, and kind of ended back up in it. And really just, I worked a clinic for PGC basketball for the first time since I was a player. And it was really cool to kind of come back and connect and, continue building on those experiences.
Was coaching something, even as a youth and going through that like high school experience, was coaching something that was always kind of in the back of your mind as something you'd want to do?
That's a great question. So I love telling the story of between. So I also played baseball as well, growing up, and it was a summer baseball game, and I had just gotten pulled out. I was actually pretty mad because I was pitching, and this younger, actually he's my buddy now. He actually was just on my podcast recently, which is kind of funny how things come full circle. But I was frustrated, and then a couple innings later, I started cheering on my team, and my buddy like turns to me that was on my team and goes, because they called me Furtado, like Furtado, I want you to coach my son one day, and I was like 15 years old. And I was kind of like the first experience I kind of had with someone like telling me that I would be a good coach. I remember back in 8th grade, one of the 8th grade teachers, he wasn't working, but he was still like an administrator, part of the school, and like a big influence in the school, said like, you have a great feel for the game and like a great understanding. And I think like, I didn't understand what he was saying to me at that point, but like 10 years later down the line, like that along with my buddy saying, hey, you'd be a great coach, kind of started putting a couple things together. I actually kind of started my, I guess, coaching experience at Boys and Girls Club, like just being a mentor, a youth mentor, and, then, teaching some kids how to shoot a little bit and ran a little program. And I ended up taking a class at the University of Oregon and through is like a coaching class. And I loved it. And I was just like, eating it all up and, got into coaching middle school basketball just recreationally and had a mentor actually who I'm going to have on the podcast coming up soon, which I'm really excited to kind of like, get him on the podcast and share his wisdom that he shared with me with others. And so it just kind of was a little bit of a process. I was always the one of the more vocal players on a team. Like when we got team awards, the 3 team awards at our high school was MVP, most inspirational, and most improved. And I between baseball and basketball, I got most inspirational 5 times. So I kind of always had that energy of like upbringing a team. And so I don't think I was directly thinking about coaching, but I knew that I had kind of the skills to be like a mentor. And that's why I wanted to go the Boys and Girls Club, just like mentor route. And then I figured out you can do that in coaching as well.
So you mentioned earlier the long drive that your dad made to get you to the high school experience and what have you. What kind of impact have they had on getting you to the point that you're at now? Were they similar to you talking about how it was like kind of a leader, always kind of mentoring people, or is that something that maybe you've kind of just taken on yourself?
That's a wonderful question, and I love getting the opportunity to share how much my parents and my grandparents, have influenced me. I think my dad, thinking about specifically my dad is less so like I talk way more than my dad. I get that from my mom. He's more of like he shows his leadership through just action, right? I probably could count on one hand how many games he missed between basketball and baseball over my entire career, right? He was just always there. He pretty much would do anything for me and my sister. And so just always, that's something that I think I learned as a coach, that like you have to be like a servant for your players. And I think I learned subconsciously, because he didn't like directly tell me, and then I also had my mom, who's just always been someone who's been like involved in the school board. She's involved, like, she had breast cancer and now she's involved in like the cancer health project. And now she was an accountant for 25 years. And then she, jumped ship and now she's a social worker. So she always just had a big heart. And I think I learned subconsciously from both of them. And also from my grandpa on my mom's side, he was always big in, Lions Club, right? Service and serving and giving back to others, right? Which is, I think, something that kind of got me going down the Boys and Girls Club path and like wanting to give back in that way. And then on my dad's side, his parents are from Portugal and they immigrated. They have that entrepreneurial kind of spirit, which is where maybe the podcast comes from, and wanting to start the basketball and training, basketball leadership training, business is, just wanting to kind of create something and, have that courage to take that step. So I owe everything to my parents, and I also say to my grandparents, because my parents wouldn't have, been here without my grandparents.
So when you come up with the idea of bridging the impact between basketball and leadership, when you mention that to like your parents and such, what is their kind of response? Are they like, yes, go for it? Or is there any hesitation on their part?
That's a great question. My parents have actually been really supportive of pretty much, I think my dad, he grew up because his parents were immigrants. He grew up like, really poor, like immigrant parents. And, he actually ended up, really working hard and having a successful, construction business. And he's been able, again, to like, financially and time wise, be able to spend time with me and my sister and take, like I said, take me to 8-hour events, 8-hour drive. But I mean, there's so many other tournaments that are 3 to 5 hours away that he is so supportive. He wants me to just be happy and love what I do. And I know my mom does as well. They are definitely like big on it. I think, they're quite, I guess, quieter than me, like I think I am a little bit more, especially my dad. My dad's like, almost, I know that they're proud, right? They're proud of what I'm doing. And, they're like almost not like, where did this come from? But like, like, we wouldn't have had the courage to kind of put ourselves out there on social media that I've been doing for the last few years. So they're really proud, but that support is honestly what really continues to help drive me, and know that I have people in my corner that support me in who I am, and just, give me love, because it's, as you probably can experience with, starting a podcast, like it can be kind of not necessarily lonely, but challenging, right? Challenging journey of like, you have all these thoughts like, should I be spending my time doing something else? But having those people, and especially my parents, have been really supportive of it.
So you make the decision to kind of build this leadership idea. Well, how does one even take a dream and start putting it into like actual steps that you can start building on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will kind of, before I even talk about bridging impact, I actually started with something called Better World Challenge. I was trying to run challenges like, little trash pick me up challenges, like let's donate some socks and underwear to, local organizations, and just trying to challenge people to like get active in their community. And I was really working on this during like the pandemic, like early pandemic, when a lot of social issues were going on, and I was really trying to encourage. And so I just kind of started that. And eventually it kind of formed into something that was called Impact with an E, because I wanted to really, like, I graduated from University of Oregon in 2020, and I had a YouTube graduation. I didn't really get the last end of my senior year, and that transition out of college was hard for me and was challenging for me, because I didn't really no college student really knows what they want to do. Well, I'm sure a few do, but not only that, I didn't even know what the state of the world was going to be, because I was in a pandemic. So I wanted to build like this organization that helps college students transition out. For lack of patience, I would say, for the first two kind of, entrepreneurial ventures, I would say I learned that, I was an idea guy, but I think it's not necessarily, I don't want to say it's easy to dream, but it's easier to dream than it is to execute on, the idea. Because, I'm sure, as you can attest, for the coach's corner, it's probably taken many shapes and forms, and then it ends up becoming something because you take that consistent action. I was actually like, part of one thing that I listen to every day is like, I have a Calm subscription, which is like an app on the iPhone. And Jay Shetty was talking about, when you want to like build a habit, or you have a goal, like just to start with like one little thing. And so, I just started with, coaching basketball a little bit, coaching recreationally. Now I coach high school. And then I'm like, wait, I'm actually like really good at this. I enjoy it, and there's like a market for it. So like, let's just go for it and just kind of take like one small step at a time.
You talked about that idea of kind of taking a risk or putting yourself out there. What was it like when you did finally like put the challenges when you put them out there? Because you don't know, are people actually going to link in? How was it that you could keep being consistent, kind of based on maybe not so consistent results? I guess if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that
How do you keep plugging away, knowing that if you can get it to click, you're doing really good things, but how do you get it out there? How do you get the right people? How do you get people to buy in? How do you consistently just keep putting stuff out?
that's such a good question, and it's a hard question to answer too, because I know when I first started, so I, even like before I did the Better World Challenge stuff, I started doing, like, I saw some of my buddies that were from high school. Actually, one of them is the one that I was talking about, the younger guy who came in for me in a game. They were posting content online, and I was just like, oh, this looks cool. I just want to spread a positive message online. And I started doing it. And, I actually had a lot of like, looking back on it, anxiety over it, because, I was a junior in college when I was posting it. And so you're still kind of transitioning out of that high school mode where you want to be cool, you want to fit in. And my roommate started making fun of me and going, Furtado. And then I would used to be like, say like, good morning, everyone. Like that was kind of my thing. And, they would make fun of me like, good morning, Furtado, and just kind of like banter and go back and forth. And I think over the years, I've tried to have, I guess like thicker skin, so to speak, because people are always going to have kind of an opinion of what you're doing. And they're not necessarily going to always agree. And I think the hardest thing, because I still have this, like I still talk to myself about this, like having that internal dialogue, is just having an honest conversation that you don't need to please everyone, because I'm naturally a people pleaser. I think that's one of my, like, it's like a skill at one point, because I can get along with anyone. But at some points, like, as leadership, like I was thinking about this the other day for myself, is sometimes and this is, I've been told before too, I'm too chill. Like, I don't want to like ruffle those feathers. And when you put something out there, like, you have that like in the back of your head that you're like ruffling feathers, but in reality, no one's really thinking about it like whatsoever. They may look and be like, ha ha ha, and then just, scroll to the next thing. So I think it's kind of a journey. I think I want to touch on, part of the question that you asked is, I actually had like a couple of my friends that helped me out with the Better World Challenge and helped me like be consistent. And so like having a team, and I think that's why I love sports so much, is the team aspect of things is what really kind of drives me. And I know that when I have people in my corner that are supporting me, that makes all the difference. So finding, they don't necessarily, like, I'm not sure like how you approach it, but for me in Bridging Impact, I have a buddy actually at home. He has a podcast. He's starting a lawn care business, and we try and talk every single week. And in the entrepreneurship world, like, it's can be kind of lonely when you're starting it on your own, but talking to other entrepreneurs, they don't necessarily have to be on your direct team, but they can help you kind of in that pursuit. Because going at it alone, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's a lot more challenging when you don't have other people in your corner.
How how is it that you can, in those situations, is it difficult to kind of be vulnerable, to be able to say like, hey, here's some ideas I'm thinking about, and to get that feedback from others that are kind of going through it with you? Or even back in the day when it was a couple of your buddies working with the, bettering the world and all that kind of stuff, because I find it as well, that you're constantly putting stuff out and you're hoping that people, it gets traction or gets likes or views or gets some interaction and what have you. How easy or not so easy is it to even have someone who's with you, supporting you, but getting their feedback from them?
That's a great question. I think when I think about that, I think, it's easier for me to like approach, because I feel like there needs to be a balance. Like, right, I don't want to just surround myself with the yes people are always like, yes, go do this, because sometimes you can go down not necessarily the wrong path, but like, for me in Better World Challenge, when I had people in my corner like say, good, keep going, like realistically it wasn't going to ever financially support me in the model that I had done it. And so I had to come to a realization, right? Like, you don't just want yes people telling you, yeah, you can do it, but you do want that some of those people, because it's hard, it's challenging to do some of those things. Having, I think, I'm really lucky that my girlfriend, my partner, actually is kind of that realistic person for me to sometimes like be like, hey, like, have you thought about it like this? Not necessarily like that's a dumb idea, like don't do it, but it's like, kind of spinning and asking questions like, have you thought about it like this? I think that's a really important thing to have when you are, a creator, because, our ideas, in our head, like they seem so good, but then you put it out there and you're like, oh man, no one watch this, and I think one of the things that I've had to learn, like as a creator, like thinking about content creation, is I really want to create, it's kind of the balance, and I'm sure you found it, like especially on like YouTube Shorts, like you have to find the balance of like posting stuff that people want to see and like the algorithm shows people, but also like what you're like really passionate about. Like my leadership videos just do not do as well on on any media really, actually, except for Twitter maybe, as much as like, oh, here's how you do this move, boom, shoot, right? And so like that, it's a kind of a challenging balance. And I talk to my buddy up north about that all the time, and we're just like, okay, maybe when we grow, we build that relationship, then we can kind of like sneak in, some of our philosophy and what we really believe about leadership into the basketball world.
When you look back at the Better World experience, what were some of the things that worked, and what were some of the things that didn't work, like project wise, or maybe if you look back, maybe you would have done something different?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think one of the things that was working well was actually my podcast was, doing actually pretty good numbers. But so I at first I started with what I was doing for the podcast was I was interviewing, like I chose a topic, and I remember like wildfires were a big thing because I was in Oregon at the time, and I chose like three different people to interview, and I kind of like segmented them all, and I got a ton of views and listens at the time. And this is like before podcasts exploded too. And eventually I kind of moved to just interviewing one person at a time. And I was like, whoa, why are my views and listens going so down? But it's because I was only interviewing one person. So because at that point, right, I didn't really have a following really, so I just relied on the people, and I don't think I really made the connection to, you know, the episodes and number of downloads until I realized, like, 6 months after I stopped doing it, like, whoa, I got less views on these because I only interviewed one person. And I was just so impatient at the time. I was like, why are the views dropping? And so actually, that's one of the reasons Bridging Impact started as a podcast. And then I realized I can, really do this as a coach. And, it started as I really just wanted to pass like leadership and wisdom on to, like, after school instructors and coaches, people that work with youth, so we can, pass leadership on to youth. And it's kind of expanded since then, and just being talking about like the impact of sports. And to go back to your question, like, one of the things that I don't think worked was, like, I think you have to ask yourself, like, if it's a creative project, do you want it to be, a side hustle? Do you want it to be your full-time income, or is it just fun? Because I think knowing which bucket it is will help you understand and, create the right business model. Because it's just a hobby. Like, you can just do this, we can just slap it on, do for fun. But if we want to grow, we want to make it our, sustainable business, we have to try and find a business plan for it to, eventually support us, and then to be patient, because that's something that's actually my word of the year for 2023. It's just patience. And I think, being a part of, since I'm Generation Z, I'm one of the older ones. I kind of consider myself a millennial, but I grew up around a phone, and, I want that instant gratification, the microwave society, whatever you want to call it. I just want to be like, oh, successful. Like, look at that business. It's so good. Look how he's got 1 million, followers and downloads, and so I'm just trying to, like, really enjoy the, like, process of it, and, like, the everyday, like, I enjoy coaching my freshman and sophomore, and it's okay that I'm not coaching varsity, like, and just kind of, enjoying the moment.
You mentioned about like figuring out if you want to do it as a hobby or going all in and all that, and then you mentioned the coaching. Is there one that you like better than the other? Do you like being into coaching? Is coaching maybe a varsity coach or a head coach? Is that something that you are looking toward doing, and then letting the building impact kind of mission kind of continue to just kind of organically grow? Or are you 50-50? I guess is maybe the question.
Yeah, so what I'm hoping is actually to build Bridging and that basketball training, company, and be able to do that alongside being a varsity coach. My actually, like, my number one would be to do Bridging Impact first, because I want to create that, like, full-time sustainable income for myself. I'm not in a rush to become a varsity basketball coach, but I do have aspirations of being that one day. And number one, I know that at least I wouldn't be ready for a bigger program, maybe like a smaller program, but right now I am in a fortunate situation where pretty much all I'm doing is coaching. I'm not really doing the administration work that the JV and varsity coach does. And there's a lot that goes into that. So I am, kind of enjoying the process of that. I'm not as much in a hurry, but I do, I know, like, I'm really good with working with groups. Right now I'm doing a little bit more private training, just because I don't have as many, I guess, necessarily connections in gym space. But I know that I want to I want to do a lot of clinics and camps, and, impact and affect people in that way, because I like chaos, like, I'm not as big of, like, small groups and stuff. Like, I get excited because I love just working with athletes, but what, like, I really love doing is team building, and, like, creating an experience for people, for a team of people.
You kind of mentioned trying to get, into spaces and get started. what
Mm.
what steps have you taken? Like, what has worked for you, or what are you hoping to accomplish so you can get those small groups together, and start kind of building that momentum?
So I actually just joined a course. It's a sports accelerator course. And if anyone's interested, at the end when I give out my information, you can, ask me about that. But I had to realize that if I wanted to do this, sooner than later, like, I paid a certain amount of money, to join this course, and learn how to do just like the techniques of how to do it. I also call my mentor, who I've had on the podcast before, and he has a successful basketball training business from where where I grew up. And so just kind of talking to other people, and I actually just interviewed someone today who just did it, does it in Massachusetts. And so the ability to like contact and ask people like how you do it, and like, pay for courses and learnings. Like I'm still really early on, so I don't want to like give out false information or anything, but what is really challenging actually in Los Angeles to like find gym space, because right now I'm like at the point where I'm like, because it financially has to make sense, since I want this to be, my income, right? I don't want to rent space and then not be able to cover it and just be losing money. So I'm kind of in like this interesting ebb and flow of, I am creating a spreadsheet actually right now, and I'm going to make some calls over the next few weeks, and just to get rates, not necessarily be like right now, just to understand what the rates are. And hey, maybe, because I'm thinking about calling like a boys and girls club that's close to the high school, because there's some connections there. Like, hey, can I come in and do a free clinic or a free program for you all if I can use the gym on the weekends or something, and try and create win-win situations. That's kind of my next plan. And actually, I'm at the point where I'm so early that one of the things I want to do is just like do free clinics and free plans, and go do some things for, AAU teams. Hey, let's do a 20-30 minute shooting workout, and then I'll give them back to y'all. And, just trying to get my name out there and grow that way, and then create win-win solutions for gyms. It's going to be a process. I think I'm going to have to be able to learn to get told no, right? Or like that's way out of my price range. Like I can't even think about that. So it's going to be a process.
The idea of like being a continuous learner, has that always been something that's been part of your personality? Like as you were growing up in school, were you one of those just kind of, even when you left, you're like, man, I want to check more out? And you talk about having a phone your entire life. So has that Google been like one of your best friends, even not just now as you're building toward like building your business and all that type of stuff and learning about coaching and all those? Has that part of you been something that's just been there since day one?
I think that I would say that that learner comes from like the entrepreneurial spirit, and on my dad's side, and the like curiosity from my mom's side. Because actually, school, I was like a B student, like a BA student. I wasn't, like I wasn't like enthralled with school. However, I loved, like I ate up, just like basketball content and strength and conditioning content in high school, and like that's what I really was pursuing and learning more about. And actually, I got my like personal fitness certification, instructor certification, after I graduated. Like I was just like, I loved it. So when I love something, I will like kind of had that curiosity and let it drive me and want to learn. I've, for better or for worse, if I'm not interested in it, I kind of just like, whatever, I'll just kind of like skate through. So I'm not like always, I try and like divvy up my energy and give my energy to what I really love. And again, for better or for worse, sometimes I maybe, half butt a job that I should have done better on because I just wasn't interested in. But needless to say, I have a funny story. So when I was, I think, oh shoot, it must have been in between my senior year of high school and my first year of college. I went to like a music festival, Reggae on the River. And one of the books I was reading at the time, like after, a night of going out, right? I'm reading the book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, while I'm at a music festival, and I got my mom, one of my buddies being like, yo, my mom read that, and so I've kind of always been weird about that. I started like kind of really getting into the personal development world at kind of a younger age, like I think my senior year of high school, because I had probably gotten there from, different like, basketball training videos or, strength and conditioning videos, whichever I was watching when I was a little bit, in high school. And so that drive kind of kept going. I think another cool story about learning, I think one of the first books I ever read was The Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, the Stanford professor. I was reading that towards the end of my senior year, and the end of my senior year was baseball season. And so in baseball season, I remember, it was a semifinals game. we were down 1-0, and there was a runner on third base, and there was 2 outs, and I was coming to the plate, and like uh, on deck, right on deck, I was like talking to myself, like from what I had been learning in the book, like the growth mindset, like you can do this. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but let's just say I said you can do this, and I ended up tying the game, and then kind of coming around and scoring the winning run. And so I think that click of like, okay, I read this growth mindset book, I see some success in a game, like I think I can continue building on this. And even when I'm done with sports, which I only played, basketball, baseball in high school.
You mentioned being passionate, and then when you are, you're all in. Is there part of you that worries that maybe the 9 to 5 might be the fit? Or are you one of those, it's like, look, I'm going, this is my dream. I've got a plan. I'm going to keep working at it and get at it. I guess maybe at what point does one become like question whether or not this is the right direction to go?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think I have a lot of conversations with myself. I journal every night, and trying to, one of the things that I actually reflected on in 2022 that I don't think I did very well towards the end of the year actually is like having like actual like honest conversations, because sometimes I'll just be like go through the motions, like good job, let's just do one more step forward, certain things like that, when I think sometimes you have to like ask yourself some of the challenging questions, like, is this worth it? Is this the route that you really want to go? Or is this kind of your ego pulling you here? And to answer the first part of your question, I see myself creating that 9 to 5 for myself, whatever that ends up looking like. I just like, I've always kind of been, enamored with the, kind of entrepreneurial world since I've kind of come in. And part of it is definitely, my dad is an entrepreneur. He started his own construction business, and I just love the idea of creating income for myself. And I want to eventually be able to travel and create schedule. It's just, that's something that I really want. However, I do know like my backup plan that I'm excited about if it doesn't work out is like to become a teacher and a coach, because like that's something I still love, working with youth. And if it doesn't end up working out for me as a business owner, like that's a life I could see myself living and being happy in. So like I feel like I'm winning right now. I'm actually, like, how I do it is I'm a substitute teacher right now, so I can kind of have that flexibility. Like I guess I'm still a teacher coach, and like also working on the entrepreneurial side.
You mentioned parents, grandparents being super supportive, kind of inspirational in a way. And then you mentioned that there's a girlfriend in the mix. How does she fit into all of this? Is she one of your cheerleaders up, kind of bouncing ideas off of her? What is her take? And maybe does she have similar kind of style, or is she kind of an opposite, kind of a yin yang to kind of like
Oh,
opposite to track kind of thing?
Oh, it's definitely a yin yang. I think one thing, that I love about my parents is they're super supportive, but I don't think they always necessarily challenge me. And like, if they didn't think it was a good idea, I don't know if they would tell me, but she'll tell me, So I think I've been challenged, and I think obviously, don't need to go too much into those details, but that challenge has made me a so much better person. Like, way better coach. Because at first as a coach, I just wanted to make people happy. Let's just have fun and play sports. And when you get to high school, right, that's not necessarily like I want my athletes to be great and not only on the court and respect me, but I don't need them to respect their teachers. And so you kind of have to be on them a little bit, and have that accountability aspect that I may not that may, my parents did something, really great, but the accountability aspect may not have, been there quite as much. And so that's a big role that she has filled for me. And so, but she's still like super supportive. I'm not going to sit here and say that she's like, don't do this, don't do that. It's just like, giving that like honest, truthful feedback. But she still like has came to, sessions of mine and done filming and got pictures for a website. And so like, she's like, one of the things that we want to help support, each other this year is, so she's actually in the like cinema industry and like the film industry. And so we want to start, being better about, supporting each other's projects, her helping me out with content, and I'm helping her, bounce different ideas off. She's going to finish grad school. So I'll probably, look over her resume, and just really kind of being supportive for both of each other. But I would definitely say it's a yin yang situation of she's definitely not a cheerleader, but she also is supportive at the same time.
So you've mentioned the idea of blending sports with leadership. What does that even look like? Like people hear it and a thousand things come in their mind. Like what are some of maybe like topics you look at, or what, how do you role model that? How do you make that like how do you bridge impact?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is exactly what you said. It's role model it. And I think I want to really help. I think when I think of leadership, because there's a ton of different leadership styles, and there's not one that's right and super effective. And one of the things I really want to help through Bridging Impact is help, young athletes and young people develop and cultivate awareness of who they are. Like what are their goals, what are their styles, right? Are they a leader who is going to lead by example, or are they, a little bit more of like a rah type like myself, like woohoo, kind of get the team inspired, and just helping them figure out how to contribute to a team. Like that's my biggest thing, that I feel like a lot of young athletes, young basketball players, and I'm not sure what it's like in the soccer world, but I know in basketball, a lot of times it's like trainers just work on crazy moves and, get into the hoop and trying to, basically score. I want to teach people how to contribute to a team in multiple facets of ways. How can you, encourage your teammates? So like a session of Bridging Impact will be, you'll see a bunch of high fives, you'll see, high energy, and collapse, and body language is a big thing, right? If you miss a shot, if your teammate makes a mistake, how do you respond? Those little things that make or break a team. Like it really does. Like I'm watching, a couple of other teams go through some, challenges, and I'm having, players come up to me and are like, coach, your team is so like tapped in. You guys love each other. Like, our team is a little toxic, and I won't talk about what team that is, but just really getting people to have that chemistry. And I really encourage conversation. I think at the end of practice, like if you are frustrated with someone, let's have a conversation. I don't want to shy away from it, because at the end of the day, like I think one of the things that I'm, going back to what my girlfriend has kind of taught me is like you can have those disagreements and still, be a family, be a team. And you don't even have to like the person on your team, but as long as you just respect them, right? And so just kind of, a mix of keeping it real and encouragement and body language and just doing the little things with joy as well, I really believe makes a huge difference for teams.
I love the idea of the bridging impact kind of mission and the whole style, even the better the world type of thing that you are doing. If someone's interested and wants to like connect or find out more about bridging impact or just connect with you, what are some of the best ways they can go about doing that?
Yeah, the best way I would say is you can DM me on Twitter or Instagram. Both are Coach Furtado with double O, and then I'll give you my email from there, and or number depending on what you want. I'd love to get on the phone and have conversations. And if if you're a parent in Los Angeles and your kid's interested, like I would love to talk to you about the program. But really, I know long term, like I do want to have a coaching aspect of the program that teaches how to bridge the impact, but I gotta I don't know about you, but for me, like I have to learn how to focus and like do like one thing at a time. So I will get there one day. But if you want to have a conversation, I'm always down to have conversation with coaches about basketball, coaching. Like we just talk coaching, and soccer coach, basketball coach, it doesn't matter. I just love talking about how we can impact the youth. So either way would be a great way to contact me.
This chat has been awesome. I love the idea, and I'm super excited to kind of watch your journey as my journey continues to grow and evolve. I'll shut this thing down. This is Karen with Coaches Corner Chats with Justin Furtado, and I'm out. Peace.
Peace.